I just want to read a scripture as part of my prayer as to why we do invocations. 1 Timothy chapter 2 says, I urge you then, first of all, that petitions, prayers, intercession, and thanksgiving be made for all people, for kings, or presidents in our case, and all that are in authority, so that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. This is good and pleases God our Savior. And that's found in 1 Timothy 2, 1, 2, and 3. So I just want to take this moment to do that very thing and pray for you that are in authority. So Father, I want to pray scripture, and I also want to reflect on our declaration, Lord, that talks about truths that are self-evident, that we're created equal, that we're endowed by you, our Creator, with certain unalienable rights, which would be few of them would be life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we know, Lord, that this declaration wisely spells out, Lord, that these truths are self-evident, that we're created by you, God, and that we're created equal, and that you endowed us with rights, and that government is created to protect these truths. From the President of the United States, I pray, Lord, and all the way here to our precious and beautiful city of Washougal, for our council members, our mayor, and their staff who were created to protect our lives, our liberties, and our properties as citizens of Washougal. And they're here tonight fulfilling their duty of these serious matters. So we, who are participating in this moment of prayer, ask you, God Almighty, to grant them the necessities of wisdom, integrity, and cooperation needed to accomplish these tasks. I thank you, Lord, for their commitment to protect us, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you. With that, I'll call the meeting to order and ask the Cub Scout Pack 450 please come forward and present our nation's colors and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With that, Rose, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Boger, Councilmember Wagner. Here. Councilmember Greenlee. Councilmember Lindsay.
Here.
Councilmember McDaniel.
Here.
Councilmember Shoemaker.
Here.
Councilmember Corsi.
Here.
Councilmember Boger let me know earlier that he would not be in this evening. I'm not sure why we're missing Councilmember Greenlee. He did mention that he had a horrific headache, but I see all of his stuff is here. So,
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent to excuse Councilmember Boger from tonight's meeting, and I will not excuse Mr. Greenlee because I think he's coming right back.
okay. There are no objections, so ordered. Are there any amendments to the? There we go. Let the record show that we've got Councilman Greenlee now in attendance. Are there, I have One amendment to the agenda to add the North 20 and Granite 3 development agreement discussion to the end of our new business items. Other than that, are there any additional amendments to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
could we have that before make that the first order of new business in order to expedite the evening for the people who waited past the dinner hour?
We can. I would be surprised if your item A takes more than 2 minutes.
You're the agenda expert.
Any other amendments? Okay. With that, the agenda will stand with the addition to it. Are there any members of the public that would like to address council? Okay, not your only opportunity this evening. Moving to the consent agenda. Council, this evening, your consent agenda has 4 items on it. Your workshop minutes of November 7th, 2016, your council minutes of November 7th, 2016, your accounts payable checks totaling $867,993.96, and Agenda Bill 95-16. An agenda bill setting a public hearing on stormwater regulations and amendments to the Washougal Municipal Code and engineering standards.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that the consent agenda be approved as read.
Hearing no objections, so ordered. Going to new business, item A, Agenda Bill 96-16, an ordinance with amendments to the Washougal Municipal Code 3.06.040, excise tax on real estate sales. David, you taking this one?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you recall, at our last work session, our Finance Director reviewed a draft ordinance with you. This is a cleanup item in our code that deals with real estate excise tax, something that she noticed as she was going through the code. When we first adopted this tax as a city, it was done at a time when we were under 5,000 in population, and how you use the proceeds of that tax for expenditures is different once you cross that threshold. So now, obviously, for quite some time, we've been larger than 5,000. And so this is a cleanup ordinance to repeal the current section that deals with this, and it replaces it with statutory compliant language. I want to mention that we have been doing it properly all these years, and I'm thankful that Jennifer noticed this as she was doing a little review of the code and moving this cleanup forward. The recommended action is to read the ordinance by title only, and then to pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we read the ordinance by title only.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
An ordinance amending section 3.06.040 of WMC Title III Excise Tax on Real Estate Sales.
Mr. Mayor, I move we pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner. Any council discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Brings us to item B, our continued discussion on the North 20 Development Agreement and Granite 3 Development Agreements. Mitch?
Did you want me to go back to the North 20?
I had a couple of questions on it
Okay.
myself. I don't know whether other council members do or not.
Okay,
I don't know that you need that's the only one you would need for me.
all right.
So obviously, this is starting to lock in where roadways are going to be, at least on the east and west. Are you comfortable with the merging of this with the work that Berger ABM is doing now, that this isn't going to create any issues for them in completing that work?
The location of the collector is consistent with what the draft transportation plan that we have now. Berger's layout and cross-section of that is probably more involved. It included some center landscaping, for center lane landscaping for stormwater purposes. We heard tonight from their engineer that, that stormwater is just, they don't have the infiltration there, it doesn't work. So there's some discussion that I would like to have with the Berger team about that, that cross-section and making sure that, because my concern is that this road will extend east and this road will extend west, and I would like to have that be consistent throughout. And so there is still some discussion that needs to take place between myself, Berger, and the development group there.
Do you anticipate that taking place and being settled before this comes back, or as the development occurs?
I believe, my hope would be that we could get it into the development agreement itself, so
Okay.
that we'd have a cross-section, a good cross-section that everybody is comfortable with. Will we have that by next Monday? Probably not. By the 5th, I would definitely hope so. And if not, then I believe that, Ken and I would work on language that would, make it, give us the ability to achieve what it is that we're after with that.
Okay. So if, and this is certainly up to the council, if somewhere in there and coming in before the end of December, those discussions are still taking place, yet we don't have council meetings set or that type of stuff, I would encourage you to use your community development committee to kind of bounce anything off of that you've got left in there before you make a final decision and we delegate that to you.
Okay.
Knowing that we want to, have consistency, not just in the roadway and where it aligns, but also in the construction and the appearance of the roadway and the landscaping and the stormwater systems. So my second question is on the the collector as well. What is currently, what's our road standard for that? I heard 28 feet is what's being proposed in this one, but what is our current standard?
I don't know that. I want to say it's 32, but I would have to look into that, and hopefully on Monday I'll have a cross section of what our current section is, and then whatever they're proposing. I know that they wanted to shorten up the right-of-way. They wanted to shorten up the section.
So if I heard Jamie correctly, Mr. Housley correctly, one of the reasons that they wanted to go to the narrower streets and kind of the serpentining in there is to try and keep the traffic speeds down. But I think we found in an awful lot of places, not just in Washougal, but also in other places around here, that isn't real effective, especially on new streets. So I would be hesitant, although it's up to the council, whatever you may do with the development agreement, I would be hesitant to reduce the width of that roadway. Otherwise, all I see us doing is taking the development standards that we had for Woodburn Hill in the sub-area that we eliminated and went to city standards. And now here's the first one that's on the back side of it that we're gonna go and reduce the width of the roadways again.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of things that differentiates that road from every other road that's on there. That road itself will be
Not talking about the other ones. I assume the other ones are all to standard.
all the standard, right? But that road, that collector road that goes through there won't be any direct access to that road. So there won't be driveways coming off of that.
Right.
And there's no parking at all on that. So it's only there to move cars.
And with those provisions in there, I see speeds going up, regardless how narrow the roadway is.
We did talk about some other ways to try, and they want a speed of 25. I mean, that's the speed limit that they want on that road. We did talk about some other ways, alternatives to try to keep speeds down. We don't have any of those details yet in the, articulated in the development agreement. I don't know if we'll have those by Monday, but hopefully again, like maybe we'll have something by the 5th. But
Jennifer?
your point is taken, I understand that.
I totally and completely agree. Have we talked about potentially requiring some traffic calming pillows through the roadway?
They don't like them, but it is something that we can look at doing. We did talk about, I think at Community Development Committee, we talked about at intersections we have roundabouts, center island roundabouts to slow speeds down, so you wouldn't, you'd be going through it wouldn't be just one long straightaway. You'd have some center things that you'd have to maneuver around, keep speeds down.
That was my next question. Are there any stop signs along that road?
The only stop signs would be onto the access onto that collector off of those certain streets.
The intersecting streets.
Yeah, but the through traffic doesn't stop.
Correct.
So, and there's no turn lanes or anything like that. It's
None have been designed, no. Again, if we had landscape islands or roundabouts within those intersections, then you would have to maneuver around those, but it was just one of those things. I can't remember if they were that keen on that idea or not, but it's definitely something that we can talk about.
And this is 280 home sites?
281, yeah. 281, 282.
Michelle?
Just to follow up on that, so the Berger recommendation was for a 32-foot wide?
City standard?
Yeah.
Or was it bigger than that?
I don't think it's any bigger, and I don't want to throw numbers out there because I'm not exactly sure. But what I will do is when I have the presentation for Monday, I'll have Berger I know has done a rendering. I can get that rendering of what it would look like, but I'll have the cross sections of what we currently have, what Berger's proposing, and what they're proposing.
And are both of these 4-lane roads with bike paths, so 2 lanes in each direction?
There's one travel lane in each direction
Okay.
and bike lanes.
Okay.
Yeah, it is not. It's not an E street.
Right. What kind of islands were they talking about? Do you remember the width of them that Berger had proposed?
I don't. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I just remember at the TAC meeting on last Thursday, I remember seeing a rendering of it, but we didn't talk dimensions of it, so I can get that.
But that was a 1-lane road in each direction that they had
Yes.
proposed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. This is not. That road is not intended to be multiple lanes in each direction.
I just mentioned it's a collector, not an arterial.
Right. If nobody else has any other questions on North 20, I'm fine with that. You've got my notes, so.
Okay. Thank you.
I just would caution the developer if they've got, really strong reasons for that being anything narrower than a standard roadway. I'd really want to know what those are.
And I would just second that also, that when they said 9-foot lanes, I said 108 inches. That's a narrow lane.
That's what our current standard is. Yeah. 9.
Okay.
I do remember during that meeting that when we were talking about the divider strip or the landscaping strip, that they said they were going to be doing a lot of landscaping on either side, which they kind of mentioned today
Right.
for the landscape portion of it, but yeah.
Yeah, their rendering, which they held up, and I remember them having that same conversation because they are doing an enhanced pedestrian path, a 10-foot pedestrian path along there, and they've created a space away from the travel lane for that.
I like
and
that.
It is elevated, and so we talked kind of the look and feel of Padden. Now they have that elevated path and then the road down. Not the same. Again, much smaller classification, but that idea. So yes, there is an area that they will have that will be a much greater landscaped area through there. Okay.
Thank you. Granite 3.
Right, moving on to Granite 3, the same things. The difference between this one, here we are, it's about 58 acres. This is in the Woodburn Hill sub-area, so completely different moratorium that we're dealing with. That ordinance 1805 is the Woodburn Hill sub-area. It does also contain language that will allow development to proceed as long as it is in compliance with the underlying zoning designation and the existing development regulations. And so to that end, here's the zoning map, again, the sub-area map, and the sub-area outlined in red or orange kind of on that, and then I imposed the silhouette of the development site there in the R175. I'll ask here's the proposal. I'll ask Scott, are you taking that one? Scott with SGA to come up.
How many home sites over the 58 acres?
135.
Okay, thanks. Good evening, Scott.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you very much for your time. And for any questions, thank you in advance. Start off, the project is Granite Highlands, a subdivision looking to utilize the existing R7.5 zoning, as Mitch just showed in the zoning map. This development is geared more towards or similar to what our 115 development might look like, with much larger lots than 7,500 square foot averages, which is what the R75 zone usually has. The development had 170 plus lots at the time of pre-app, and has subsequently reduced the number of lots with increased critical areas on site. So you'll see the wetland complex that runs through the site sort of east to west. And so that wasn't previously identified in 10 plus years ago, when this was slated to be phases 6 through 11 of Granite Highlands. And so that's newer information. There's also some oak trees that have been identified on the site with the circles and the stars. And so with the goal of preserving and maintaining as many of those as possible. Many of those do fall in the critical areas, the wetlands, and then their buffers. There's also some streams, some seasonal drainages that are in the northeast corner of the site. So those are dashed lines with some buffers radiating off of those. And so we're currently at 135 lots shown on the plan. It's approximately 9,000 plus square foot average on the lots. So lots do vary in size from the high 6,000 square foot lot size upwards of half acre, over half an acre on the northernmost lots. Many of those northernmost lots have steeper slopes on the top half of the lots, but some of them are upwards of 200 feet deep and be very nice high-end homes. It's sort of continuing the theme that comes from Y Street, which is stubbed to the west side of the site. V Street and LeBrun are also stubbed to the west side of the development. And then T Street is at that south east corner. And currently there's a access gate there and a gravel path that goes through the site. A city water main runs through the site and up to the northeast corner, and the reservoirs that are just off site. So just some quick numbers, I guess. If we were looking at maximizing the density on this site and using density transfer or other zoning provisions, we would be upwards of 290 lots on the development. We're looking to be closer to the development densities of the R115 zone, although we're R75. R115 would allow 160 to 170 lots maximum, and we're currently at 135. So I think we're really helping to improve the character of the hill and the higher end homes, which is what this area, this portion of town sort of currently slated with. And that's the trend up there. So, but yeah, I look forward to any questions or thoughts or ideas.
Paul?
I can't read the lettering. Above your critical area, your wetland area, kind of 2/3 of the way to the west, that thing, what's that?
That is a stormwater tract that's been sized for detention. This project has a number of stormwater tracts. That's the largest one that would handle detention of treated stormwater. Adjacent to the central road that ends in a cul-de-sac, if Mitch can highlight that, on the north side of the road, there's a bioretention facility. So this is essentially like a rain garden swale that treats the stormwater as it flows down. And there's a number of these in the development. So those are LID, low impact development style stormwater feature. So that treats the stormwater, and then the treated stormwater goes to detention ponds next to the wetlands. And so after the stormwater is detained, it's released into the wetland buffer on site.
So if your overflow from those retention areas off of the roadway, those would go directly to the stormwater retention ponds?
Correct, yeah, so that it's overflow or it's just flow through of treated stormwater. And then also roofs, because roofs aren't pollution generating, they can go directly to the detention pond. So, and then those detention ponds are designed to contain all the water and not let any more flow off the site than did before the development. So they'll be releasing slowly to the wetlands And then those can be landscaped as well and screened and improved upon besides the traditional ponds and eyesores.
Other questions from council? Michelle?
We had talked a little bit about the trails, possible trail connections. I know
Yes.
Mitch had mentioned that to you, and I don't remember if we talked about pocket parks or anything. Can you point out anything that you've done in that regard?
What we've looked at so far is just the possible locations of trails. The buffer of the wetlands and the open space tract is the best location for a trail loop system on the site. Trail connections are feasible at the north edges of the site with the road connection and the other open spaces. And there's some lookout opportunities above T Street where it says Phase 5. And there's a large open space there with the oaks. There's quite a rocky knoll, so in the southeast corner of the site. And so that's a good opportunity for some trails that could loop in that area. And pocket parks could work in some small spots. You have a lot of steep terrain up there, and so it's hard to get much flat area for equipment. But there's a lot of good pocket parks that have been implemented where it's just a picnic table and some paved area, or one little area for a tot lot or some smaller structures, or even just a covered area, for sort of gathering with garbage can and minor improvements, small improvements. So there doesn't seem like anywhere on this site will work well for a neighborhood park or larger
Right.
park.
So can we expect to see some of those improvements
Yes.
in the development? Like, will there be a gravel trail then around that open space there, or?
Yes, what could be done is a trail plan could be prepared. We have sketches of that, but nothing formalized. We could bring that to next week's meeting, the next workshop, and show some trail opportunities. Trying to think, the goal with these wetlands and their buffers is to try and minimize impacts. And so a lot of times they like to use bark chip trails. They have gone to using some compacted gravel. It's very popular in Camas. Works a little better on steep slopes too than doing asphalt or paved trails. And then also it works better for stormwater and meeting the current codes. And so I think that's what the trail systems would be in these open spaces, like a compacted gravel or bark chip trails. And then there's some opportunities for some paved trail connections in the development. Those could all be shown on a trail plan though.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you for looking into that. That's
Yeah.
been a recent priority, I would say, with our parks board and trail connectivity and the UGA, and of course along the Columbia too, is getting some connectivity with trails and just providing more trail access.
Yeah, there's
for the
definitely good
community.
opportunity to go along the streets, with varied sidewalks and detached trails like the other project has proposed. And that can work really well, especially with grade. If you have a steep hill and you're cutting a road in, just doing a sidewalk on one side instead of both, that's wider, above the road, separated, those kind of connections. But there's a good opportunity to connect, the south edge of this project and T Street with the north edge of it, and then the new developments, north of this area as well.
Would that be something that would be in the DA then?
Well, I think what Scott's saying is that you're going to try to show some of that on your connection plan, your trail plan.
Correct, and then the discussion that if those meet the capital facilities trail plan being potentially creditable, but for the most part, it's gonna be more amenities for the development itself.
Yeah, typically what we end up with for the impact fee credits is that it's something that has to be dedicated. And we've had some recent discussions about easements and other things that possibly could be utilized for that. But again, we have to make a determination that it meets the capital facility plan itself.
And we're agreeable to that, understanding it's a lot of challenges on this site with steep slopes and grade and then critical areas and buffers. So, but we wanna try and make the trail systems work anywhere we can. Every development that's ever put some in, it really enjoyed them. So it's a good amenity. Way to get outside right there in your own neighborhood, not have to go drive to another trail system.
Dave?
The pond you've got up there in the southwest, you mentioned that it was used for treated water, treated stormwater. How does it get treated before it arrives there?
So those are bioretention facilities or rain gardens. When it's a much larger installation, it's called a bioretention facility. So there's a number of them that are adjacent to the roadways. So the water flows directly into the bioretention facility and then flows through it, similar to a grass swale. We use a lot more native plants, and the time that it sits in that facility and soaks through the soil, that's what treats it. On these ones, because we can't infiltrate on the steep slopes and the rocky soil, there's an under drain. And so water that filters through is collected by a perforated pipe and an under drain system, and then it flows into stormwater pipes that carry it to the storm ponds.
Thanks.
Yep.
Paul?
Again, I just want to mention, I've seen some of the evolution of this project, and I'm thankful, and my congratulations to bringing forward a project that really has a lot more aesthetics than some of the things that we've seen up there.
Other questions?
Your Honor?
Yes.
A couple of things to note. The applicant is asking for stormwater vesting. Obviously, that's one of the reasons we're here. They're also talking about street tree height, and one of the things that we didn't mention.
In Granite Highlands?
Yeah, yes. Is that in our, one of the other changes in the stormwater that's folded into the stormwater changes that it's not related to stormwater, but we took the opportunity when we were looking at it, is street tree height. And we implemented in that change from 50-foot canopy to a 30-foot canopy. So that is also rolled in with your stormwater. The applicant, so I mean, that's the direction that we're moving. At least that's what we proposed to council. The applicant in this case is looking to do anywhere from a 20 to a 30-foot tree, and really to try to make sure that they protect the views of the houses that they are higher up on that hill. So we don't run into some of the.
So we don't continue the same issues that
Yes,
we've got in the rest
exactly.
of Granite Highlands?
Exactly.
Okay. Dave?
I just wanted to say thank you for bringing this project to our community.
You're welcome.
It's been a long dry spell.
Yeah, this one started a long time ago and then just sort of got put on a back burner. It's a challenging site. So, but you can see what's been done to the west, and it works out pretty well. We just want to try and avoid all the narrow lots and long straight blocks. This project lends itself to the curvilinear design, and the roads are pretty well set where they're at right now based on grades, just because of how steep it is out there and the physical ability to put a road on those slopes. And so I think it's a great design. It's got a lot of positives to it, and isn't really pushing on the code in any ways, I don't believe. And so the stormwater is just the biggest piece of this developer agreement and the vesting.
I would just add that I'm comfortable with shorter than 30 feet.
Michelle?
Did you say that there will be parking along LeBrun? Is it LeBrun, right?
Correct.
Is
That's
there-
the primary east-west there that goes the longest stretch and then connects to the south.
I know you said the houses along that road would have driveways and that would be their access point. Will there be parking along LeBrun?
Yes, those are all 70-foot wide lots, and so typically you'll have a 20, 25-foot wide driveway, maybe 30 if somebody went with a 3-car garage. So you'll still have over half of the frontage of each of those lots for parking. On the south side of the street where the storm facility is, and then some of the other lots that can access from the south, there'll be unlimited parking. All the existing homes on the southwest corner all front to the south, so that's all backyards, and so that'll be all parking available along there. And then all the streets in the development are actually over 28 feet wide, and so there's parking on both sides allowed where it's between driveways.
And the same on LeBrun, parking on both sides?
Correct.
So with the, on the cul-de-sac that's on the north side, close to the center, left of center, you've got a couple of areas coming off of there that look like they're easements. Are those shared driveways to access lots in there, or are the lots accessing onto the collector roadways in front of them?
Those would work much better to access from the north side, and so those would be shared driveways.
Okay.
Those are also the opportunity where we can connect up to the central portion of the site with a trail, the one shared driveway that goes off to the east.
Okay.
So, but due to the steep slope there, it's much more desirable to have a double daylight basement than a double garage under.
So those are shared easements just to access all the lots in there?
Correct, and those can be tracks as well that a HOA could help maintain, or the easements.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Thank you very much. Thank you for we're working to reduce the number of homes you've got up there.
Yep, it should fit pretty well with what's going on up there and improve upon, some of the other concerns people have had with some of the smaller lots, so.
So our Cub Scouts that are in the room, if we're gonna plant 135 new homes up there in places that there aren't any homes now, what's important to you guys?
Don't do it.
Pardon?
Don't do it.
Don't do it? You want your bicycle areas and places to go with BB guns and God, I can't remember.
Belongs to nature.
There you go. It's a good point. Any other suggestions? This is your chance. It's kind of unfair to put you on the spot, but okay. With that takes care of the business. Yes.
You've got a volunteer back there to be put on the spot.
Oh,
Well, so for the houses that you're building, are they for high end? Are they bigger houses, smaller houses?
Scott, you want to field that one?
Those are big lots on the top, and so those could be pretty big houses, but people are allowed to build whatever size house they want if it meets all the rules. So it'll probably be medium to large houses.
Okay, good question. We're at that opportunity in the agenda again for anyone from the public that would like to address council. And I see another hand.
One thing, we should add some playgrounds over in the area.
That's one of the things we were just talking about with the trails and that type of stuff. So this was one area when I was a kid we never really played around because it was an old quarry. And it's really hard rocks. So I would imagine even trying to put playgrounds in and that kind of stuff, or we'd have to build them all on top of the old boulders and the old rocks and stuff. But it's a pretty steep area. It just kind of keeps going up until it gets up above this one, and then it levels out. Yes?
So, for like the trails, why don't you like put more trails farther up? Like he's talking about like slope areas, because there's like a lot more like nature up there, 'cause there's more woods and everything, 'cause it's more far away from the city. You can see more nature at the same time.
That's a good point. As long as you don't slip off of that trail while you're on it. Those really hard rocks. Anyone from the public that would like to address council?
What's the lighting like on the streets? Are they doing like LED? There's a lot of lighting, new lighting nowadays. I see a lot of lighting nowadays.
According to the new development, it's LED and cast down.
Yeah, the LEDs you see in Camas are really the newer technology. They're pretty bright. They have to shield them down and can't let them shine out certain percentages and certain distances to keep it from bothering homes, but have it so it shines on most streets. So they're like 130 to 150 feet on center. So every so often is when you'll have a new street light. So, and LEDs are required now for energy saving.
Yes.
So, it's heavy that we will be building houses, because probably by the end of the century, we're gonna have like 10 billion people in the world, so we gotta build more houses for more people.
Let's not put them all in Washougal, though. And thank gosh it's still 2016.
Yeah, it's totally 2016.
Yes, ma'am.
If, like, since the, like, street lights are, like, helping the houses and the lights in the houses, like, how much money do you need to, make them, like,
Inside the houses. Depends on how much you need the lights.
Or how big the house is.
Yeah, how big the house is. Are you talking about the street lights outside or inside? Oh, oh.
You don't want to know what my power bill is.
Yeah, mine too. So who is paying for the streetlights?
City does. So that's why we're moving to the standards and taking our general standards over to LEDs, just to be able to get that efficiency and that lower cost in there as well. But yeah, we get to pay to put up any that are broken and run into and fall over, and we get to pay for the electricity that goes to them as well. This young man right here.
One thing, is the electricity connected to the outside lights from inside of the houses on the outside one?
Not on the street lamps. Nope, all different. Yes.
Well, now that I think about it, that everybody's talking about like lights, why don't you guys put like solar panels on the tops?
There are some communities that are going to that, some that are giving incentives for it. Those typically don't come from the city, but they come from the power companies that give some incentive for folks. One of the things is because, you know, the electricians that come in your home and hook everything up and the power that you buy, it costs this much. But on solar, sometimes it can cost this much. So it's all a dollars and cents thing, but in the long run, it could be a lot better. So that's why it goes to the individual homeowner, or sometimes for cities that you'll notice that some of our even, do all of you live here in Washougal? So you'll notice that some of our signal lights that are along E Street particularly, that are for the school flashing lights and that type of stuff, and our crosswalk lights, they've all got little solar panels on them, so that we can begin moving over to some of those when it makes sense to do it. Some of them take so much power that in the Northwest you just wouldn't necessarily have them be real reliable.
Mayor? I had one remaining question.
Okay.
Mitch, we had talked about LeBrun and how most of the houses do not front LeBrun up until this development here. And that's kind of a high moving and road there, and we had talked about some maybe methods of slowing it down before it got into this neighborhood. Was that, did you guys look at that at all? And we had talked about bump outs or something as you're coming in there, because LeBrun doesn't have any driveways on it for the most part. It's a pretty fast-moving road. And I was just wondering if that had been looked at like we had talked about, or...
I know traffic volumes drop off with, just to the west is the main 6th or 8th Avenue that comes up from Shepherd. And so a lot of traffic does go south. Right now our traffic engineer is doing the study and the counts
Okay.
to get that in as quick as we can for you guys to
Oh, all right.
review.
So you are looking at it.
Concurrency information. So we should have better trip counts of how many traffic, cars would go on that street every day.
And whether something like that would be needed, I guess.
If it's
Okay.
warranted, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
So how many houses are there?
135?
135? Are they gonna add more local law enforcement now that this is being developed, or?
By the time those really start coming online, hopefully, yes. We have, and not necessarily to do with this area that's already within the city. On some annexed area to the north of that, some of the stuff we were talking about in the last development agreement, a lot of that annexation area was looked at with an analysis that also helped inform us with X number of houses going in or additional populations. It figured into the analysis and into our future information for budgets on adding additional officers, adding additional fire personnel, adding additional street people, all of that, given all the area that's up there. But that was, Mitch, 900 and some odd acres?
800 total in that.
Okay. Versus this one just at 58 acres. So it all starts to add up. It certainly adds up, and it's all homes, so it's gonna take a lot of those types of services. And quite frankly, even if we never got a call for service up there, just patrol cars and personnel to be able to cruise the streets and do drive-throughs and that type of stuff as well. So there's only a finite amount of bodies that we've got to do that on a daily basis.
It sounds like speed's a big issue with this council. I know you can talk about the speed limit or speed bumps.
Yeah.
You know, the biggest deterrent I ever see out there is seeing a cop car. Because a lot of people just don't follow the speed limits because for whatever reason they hurry or they just don't care. And
Yep.
there's a speed bump, you still do 60 over them. You know, they don't care about the car.
Yeah, and I would venture if you all as a troop went down and talked with the police department, did a tour down there, I'm sure the chief and the commander will tell you, and all of the sergeants and all of the guys out there driving the streets, that is by far their number one call is fast traffic. No doubt about it. So as you guys get your driver's licenses, keep those speeds down. Any other items? This has got to be the first time Scott's ever had a development reviewed by a Cub Scout. So there is that. Yes, I'm going to take two last ones.
So, for the police cars, I seen a cop car that had a school picture on the door, and driving around corners, and yeah, it was kind of freaky to look at.
Yes.
I have two questions. Well, don't you guys have cars patrolling like around the schools? And last question.
We actually have officers inside the schools as well.
My last question is, for the houses, how many by far do you think are in the whole community of Washougal?
Oh, wow. Mitch, do you have that? You have utility hookups. We've got 3,500? Or is that 3,500 a month? Do we have 7,000?
We're almost getting close to 16,000 people.
Believe it or not, probably the closest we can get to that answer quickly is our finance director, who can tell us how many utility bills we send out on a monthly basis, times 2. So, last one.
So, when the entire area is finished, is it going to be like a whole new school district, or is it just going to be a part of another school district?
Be part of the existing ones. And this is actually, Mitch, is this Camas or Washougal? Okay, it's on that side. Not far from there, it becomes Camas, but it's still in the city. Okay. Under Mayor's Report, I have only the reminder for you of the Turkey Bingo and Turkey Carnival down at the Fire Hall this Friday and Saturday. Other than that, council members. Michelle?
Nothing.
Paul?
Let me see here. Unite, the community coalition, is a prevention coalition. We have our meeting coming up on Wednesday because Thanksgiving. We have 2 meetings, one at noon and one at 4:30. The one at 4:30 is over at the East County Family Resource Center, across the street. Anyone who is interested in prevention in our community, I would encourage you to come to one of the meetings. Yes, definitely do not miss. Oh, and that meeting is this Wednesday. And yes, don't miss the Turkey Carnival. It's a lot of fun.
On Saturday, the 19th at 1 o'clock out here by our rain garden at City Hall, there will be a dedication of a piece of art called the Golden Back Heron. So it's a nice piece of art. We were very pleased to get it for the city. And this morning, I went up to Cape Horn Sky Elementary School and gave out for the Rotary dictionaries to the 3rd grade students. So it's a program from Rotary. Every 3rd grader in the Camas and Washougal School District gets their very own dictionary. So that was a very rewarding thing to do this morning.
Jennifer?
Yep, just the Chamber of Commerce luncheon is this Thursday, and that's all I have.
Dave?
There'll be a public safety council meeting on Monday, the 21st, noon, here in the chambers. The blasting ordinance changes to sync our regulations with Camas will be the main subject. And for members of the Public Safety Committee, consider this to be an agenda call. So if you got anything, let me know. That's all I've got, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Dan?
Tomorrow, board meeting, I think they're going to be having a presentation on some more of the vision of what they're going to be doing out there. David Hanson will be there. So anybody that's interested to see all the pictures and the possibilities, please come.
Pardon me, Dan, that happened today,
Do they?
because they have a board conference to attend downtown, so that's
Okay.
where I've been for the last 2 hours.
Oh,
They
okay.
did that today. Just a heads up.
Great.
That lets you out of a meeting tomorrow.
All right.
Anything else? Dan, anything else?
No.
Okay. With that, I will ask PAC 450 to go ahead and retire the colors.
Okay.
Will the audience please rise? Color guard, advance. Color guard, salute. Color guard, carry the colors.
Thank you. With that, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.